Here is a screencast on how to predict what will happen next in text. And when you're thinking what will happen next, we're thinking much further down the track than just the very next thing that could happen. So we're going to use a prediction map to do this. So in front of you here is a prediction map. Now these are really important because what this enables us to do is weigh up what is most likely to happen next. So, in this box here you'll put the possible outcome, what you think is most likely to happen, then the evidence that you can imagine that there's evidence for the particular thing. So what we count for? Possible evidence against. Imagine what could be the evidence against. The actual evidence in the text that you find that's actually for it, and the actual evidence you can find that's against. Judge most likely outcome of that possible outcome and make a prediction. So we'll just go. So let's have a go. So you see on here, possible outcome that I'm thinking might happen tomorrow is there could be a tornado in Christchurch. So I'm going to use a prediction map to decide if that possible outcome is likely to happen. So the first part here is I've got to look at, imagine all the evidence that there could be to say that this could possibly happen. Unexpected weather happens all the time, and global warming. There are some people who think that this extreme weather we're having is linked to that. Then the next actual box is the actual evidence for. Weather predictions are frequently wrong, only 75% of the time are they actually correct. And the fact that tornadoes are notoriously difficult to predict. Very difficult, and is very rare that meteorologists are able to predict exactly when there will be tornadoes. So that's the evidence for. We're now going to flip over and do the imagine some evidence that would be against it happening. So again, imagining the evidence that's actually not there, but we kind of imagining there would be. I've put down here Christchurch had enough bad luck already with earthquakes. Actual evidence against it, they are extremely rare in Christchurch. The actual weather prediction, even though it's 75% of the time it's right, says that the weather's going to be fine, and they don't generally happen in winter. Around the other places around the world, they happen during the summer months. So, my next thing that I'm going to do is judge the most likely outcome. So this is when I weigh up the evidence that I've put down here, the actual evidence, weigh it up to determine, to judge which is the most likely outcome. And I'm going to say that there's not going to be a tornado. It's not going to happen. So my prediction, based on that, is it's likely to be a fine day with breeze, and that comes from the weather report. Now the criteria for this is really simple. If you just identify a possible outcome, you're here. If you can suggest some evidence that would support and reject a possible outcome, you're here. If you can just several pieces of evidence, you're here. If you can explain why this evidence would support or reject the outcome, you're in here. If you find an evidence support and or reject the outcome, judge the likelihoodness and make a prediction, then you're obviously here at this level here. This is where we're aiming to be, right at the top here. So that's the matrix for the prediction.